Well, hello, that's me again. Today is Monday, March 4th, 2024. And let's start with a little bit of solution for the puzzle. And this is about the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine. And when it's projected against the background of the publicity, actually, it wasn't really something which Russians didn't know about the German Taurus missiles, which we will touch upon in a few minutes. It becomes very clear, especially when one considers, as some Russian media outlets talk about it, who actually leaked the information about this conversation of the German officers. And some people say that it could have been actually Americans. But why and how, we'll talk about it. But look at this. Washington Post today or yesterday, I don't remember. So just recently, like within the last 24 hours, they write about the situation with the draft and mobilization, which allegedly the Ukrainian armed forces are still capable of doing. Well, guess what? Sirsky has been tasked with auditing the existing armed forces to find more combat-eligible troops, after Zelensky office recently announced that of the 1 million people who have been mobilized, only about 300,000 have fought at the front lines. And here we come. But nearly a month after his promotion, no one in the military leadership or the presidential administrations has explained where those 700,000 are, or what they have been doing. And of course, as absolutely normal and regular routine for all kinds of the liberal outlets, and like Washington Post or New York Times, they go and give the word to so-called opposition, which is not really opposition, but this number 700,000, and which they cannot find. And this is not accidental, make no mistake. Washington Post is not free press. It's a complete propaganda outlet of the whatever, CIA, some people say it's something else, but it is Democratic National Committee also, and they are producing those numbers, where all those 700,000 are. Well, guess what? We may justifiably assume, which of course the number was circulating for some time. These are KIAs. And I mean, plus minus, it depends on how you look at it, but that just tells you what is going on with the situation with mobilization in Ukraine. Not to speak about people, smart people actually, who run away, and they are now in millions in the European Union, and some of them actually threatening with their already some actions on the European soil, because they are dissatisfied with this thing or another, and you know what, well, Europeans wanted it, let them eat it, so to speak. So, and that kind of gives you the insight into the scale, which already was stated, that by the time the active phase will be over, and especially considering the fact how the armed forces of Ukraine conduct their operations, so to speak, which is essentially the throwing their cannon fodder, the meat at the Russian guns and Russian infantry, which, I mean, completely devastates them. And when you look at this, yeah, we may say that indeed the number of about 1 million KIAs alone, and that automatically gives us between 1.5 million to 2 million of wounded, many of them so severely that they are maimed. So that gives you the scale of things for you to understand what is this all about and how it is being fought. And now they're trying to they're doing the same thing right now. They are trying to patch up, to plug in the front. They send new reserves, or whatever they have in reserves, to plug the breach around Avdiivka, and guess what? They are being annihilated there. So, and it's not only that they're being annihilated, we knew this anyway, so, but it is also the fact that even Wall Street Journal suddenly begins to talk about 2 days ago about the fact that, oh yeah, that is the document from 2022 reveals Putin's punishing terms for peace. But they now admit that there have been negotiations and they have been sabotaged, as we all know, by obviously Mr. Boris Johnson on behalf of the United States and whatever the cabal he was representing. And they complained that draft peace deal drawn up shortly after Russia's invasion shows Ukraine was confronted with becoming a neutral state. No, it was actually confronted with the reality to become a neutral state, and obviously Russians provided their required, so to speak, limits on the armed forces of Ukraine for it not to threaten any of its neighbors, including, of course, Russia. And then, well, of course, when you look attentively by who this article was written, it was written by Max Colchester, Thomas Grove, and James Marston. All of them are journalists with the zero degree of understanding any kind of the serious military science or how operations are conducted. So generally people who have no valuable life skills, and they write about that Russian President Vladimir Putin has in recent weeks publicly hinted that he would be open to discussion to end the war in Ukraine on Moscow terms as Kiev military momentum stalls. Well, you have to understand that these people who wrote this garbage, and they are repeating this the cliche, military cliche by the way, about momentum, they don't understand what momentum is. Obviously momentum is the mass times velocity, and it applies and projects itself really well onto military operations. The problem is there's no momentum. There never was any momentum, unless, of course, if we talk about not speed actually, but velocity, which is, of course, vector. They do have momentum. This momentum is called retreat, sometimes just running away from any kind of the operationally significant points along the front. So in this particular case, it's not stalled momentum of Kiev military. It's actually very, very interesting momentum because it's negative, if you wish. But these people, again, you cannot explain this to average American journal, which brings us to this very important article, which actually how to put it politely, people started writing on my blog that, hey, listen, they read you. Well, I know they read me and they listen to me in Russia, for example, not only around the globe. I have, global audience. It's not large, but it is, it spans all continents, and I know about this, for sure. And then suddenly Mr. Kosarev, a leading journalist in Russia and of the very reputable RIA News, he comes up with this really amazing article. Actually, the machine translation is very incorrect. It's actually should read, as you can see yourself, as I highlighted it in yellow, that there have never been so many literate idiots. Not literate and idiots, but literate idiots. And he brings up the problem of which I was writing for years. I write books about it, and this is he talks about the fact that Western elites, they actually behave themselves like the idiots, or using Mr. H.R. Mencken's famous morons with PhDs, which they are. And fact is, if you will go and, if we try to go and talk about it in depth, I can give you, I don't know, number of examples. For example, Mr. Zeihan or Mr. Farid Zakaria. These are, how to say it, credentialed cretins, who know nothing about anything which represents the real human activity, be that across the military to industry to what have you. And here what Mr. Kosarev himself, a journalist, writes. No, well, we see and hear it too about the idiocy, I explained, of the Western elites. And we are talking about the degeneration, not just of the ruling elite, but of the educated class and governmental apparatus of the United States, the EU, Australia, and the rest of Canada. The most stupid statements are being made, those that concern Russia. But not only, although many people have hoped that there are smart people there too. They just sit quietly somewhere, but they can also take power. And he continues to elaborate, and he refers us to the, you know what, it doesn't matter. H.R. Mencken wrote about this in 20s. Here is, he gets us to the Joseph Schumpeter's famous work, which is called the Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. You can easily find this book. It's available for free online. It's kind of verbose, but some ideas which he wrote in 1943, Schumpeter's, apply completely today. And here what Mr. Kosarev says. Under Schumpeter, there were only 1 million students in the United States. Now it's 66% of the population in the United States has at least a college degree, elementary higher education, or something like that. And what problems do this cause? Dislike of society in general, but especially of those numbers who do something understandable and useful. The desire to break the society by relying on its monopoly in the humanitarian sphere, that is in journalism, informatics, attempts to pull the financial rope onto their side, which creates distortions in the economy. In fact, they industrializes it. In other words, a ruling class is being formed which is far from real production and normal life in general. And in this class, the ideas of reboot of everything, that is a world revolution, begin to ferment. And if not all of them, then at first of certain spheres and industries. Those that have their own science, that is work experience, their own authorities, and people of merit. Yes, Mr. Kosarev hits the nail on the head, but then again, you know, he's not the first, nor he is the last, and I've been writing for it and the death about American meritocracy for more than a decade now, and actually this is the part of my new book, and yes, it is the sublimation of the deep-seated complex of inferiority with the people who think so that they possess information. The information and knowledge is not the same. Humanitarian field doesn't give you really knowledge. It gives you information, which you then free to interpret as you know in many history books. It's called a range of interpretations. And that means it is, you can just give you example. Give me any leading American journalist and ask them to start asking me, for example, about military operations. I can manipulate them easily, and they will not know it is because they are so uneducated and they don't understand mathematics or physics of the process, let alone of the warfare of the 21st century, which absolutely imperative requires a serious engineering background to completely grasp it, to understand how operations are conducted, how they project themselves on the strategic level, and how tactics, for example, is formed. Not just on the battlefield, but how what is the mathematical part of it. And I can go on it, oh my gosh, for a long time. And so Mr. Kosarev now openly states it's in Russia. And we're indeed talking about the whole class of people which are humanities educated. Not everything in humanities is bad. You need humanities education. But what we are talking about the class which we know. Woke culture is part of it. It's actually the other, so to speak, manifestation of this whole complex of inferiority and disdain for people of real craft, of real skills, of real education. And suddenly everybody talks about it. Remember, if you remember, probably, I don't know if you remember, a couple of years ago when I was talking about Mr. Klaus Schwab, the big honcho of this World Economic Forum, the guy actually has thesis, they say that he is mechanical engineer by education, he had a thesis on how to provide loans for the mechanical engineering. It's so pathetic, it's so laughable that I cannot even emphasize enough. And yes, this is the kind of people you have at the Wall Street, and you have people in journalism, propaganda machine. They literally know nothing. They know many facts of something, but they don't have systemic education because it is not provided. I am on record, and you can quote me. American elite preparation machine is broken completely. Today, as I already stated, any diploma, any degree from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown University in international relations, in PR, whatever that is, journalism, these are disqualifying degrees. They automatically mean that the person has no education, has no understanding of the world outside, has no systemic education. So, and here we are. And as the result, we have now this situation. So Larry, my good friend Larry Johnson, he publishes about this leak with Germany. And as he stated yesterday, I believe he wrote it, one of my German contacts, as he says, sent me following. They talk about this leaked conversation which RT published, and this is of course about German officers discussing how they can provide the Taurus missiles and how to deliver them to the front lines. And here, look at this. This is a peculiar reaction of a German that tells you to what degree Germany have been brainwashed. And here's this German contact writes, this is the worst publicity Germany could ever get, because now it gets clear that we have a government that is willing to destroy Germany at the will of Washington. Well, hello, everybody knows that, who has a, half a brain, but Biden and the neocons do not only hate Russians, they also hate the Germans. Well, duh! It is so remarkable that people come only now to the realization of this fact. And he's talking about that. I really want to make sure the American people get to know about this plot. If this nonsense continues, Germany will be run by the AfD with absolute majority. Well, hello again. AfD actually is the last hope for Germany. What people do not understand, and this Larry's contact here, for example, what he writes, the intercepted conversation leaves no doubt that the several NATO states are intervening directly in Ukraine and are carrying out military operation against Russia. Yes, and guess what? Who does it? Not only Washington. Actually, Washington is very reserved in terms of those Taurus missiles. It is the fact that it is the people who oppose AfD, who are real German Nazis, who are covered with all those liberal slogans, but nothing more than totalitarian death cult, including SPD, which is a concentration of the Russian haters and people who are ready to sacrifice Germany. Actually, why ready? They already did. So it's too late for Germany. But that tells you something, which tells you about how they feel there in Germany. Albeit, obviously, when you talk about Germany, you have to understand, normal people do not work in German media, as it is true pretty much for most of the majority actually of the Western media. But look at this. They actually reached the new lows, or highs as one may say. They produce their for kids, their broadcast for kids. You see, this is a kind Taurus für die Ukraine, in which there are Scalp and Storm Shadow missiles talk to German missile Taurus, and they said, you see, we're already flying against Russians, but you are not flying because, those cowardly German politicians, and how to put it politely, this is the worst garbage I ever saw in my life. And ZDF, this was CDF, which is the major German media outlet. But to the great credit of Germans, their number of and the way their comments are made under this video is just complete outrage. And here it is, children program logo. This is how RIA News reports it. The German state broadcaster ZDF published a video about the Taurus cruise missile, which wants you to go to Ukraine, but this is prevented by the hesitant German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. A video titled "For Ukraine, Taurus" was published on February 27, but the German media only paid attention to it in early March. And yes, it created the outrage among Germans, which is actually a good kind of sign. But guess what? This is what they feed them. This is how they brainwash them, including children. Now, children has to know about the issue of the Taurus cruise missile, which is really nothing. It's just another iteration of this. It's similar to the it is similar to Storm Shadow and Scalp. And when you look at this, just good God, I mean, these people are absolutely insane. And when you have what Mr. Kosarev describes, they have disdain for everything. For them, for example, they hate Russia not only because Russians are industrial, superpower. They hate Russians because they are conservative power in a cultural sense, and it comes across, it's just completely perpendicular, to all those values and ideas which this class, or including media class, they profess. And those ideas are insane. They go against human nature. They go against the 1,000 years of human morality, the way it have been worked out by civilization in general. And yet here we are now. Children, German children, have to be involved in the discussion on the sending of Taurus. But it's not going to happen, of course, now, because Mr. Scholz. The important part of this whole thing is not the fact that some German officers that were discussing them sending of Taurus to Ukraine. It's the fact that what is happening in Germany, which is completely rudderless, and it will continue to be so, and yeah, it has been deindustrialized, and it will actually accelerate even more. And this is not just, so to speak, the only one thing, so now Germans are suffering, so to speak, like the Telegraph, this, the dumpster United Kingdom tabloid. They don't have any other. Everything which in United Kingdom related to media is garbage, it's trash, basically, as are people who work there. But you see, there is another thing, that, Germany spills British military secrets to Russia. Germany accidentally leaked British military secret to Russia by using off-shelf video phone technology to discuss missiles in Ukraine. Yeah, as if Russians didn't know that British are there and they are directly involved. Oh my. That tells you also the level of those people. Yeah, it's like Macron. Yeah, we want to send troops to Ukraine. Well, sure, send more troops, we'll kill more. It's not like Russians are surprised with this. Russia already on record for the last 2 years that NATO cadre troops are directly involved in the operation, especially operating the high-tech systems such as the air defense complexes. So guess who putting in the flight plans into those Scalps or Storm Shadows? French and British professional officers. So there you go. Oh my God, they opened us such a Polichinello secret. It just tells you how those people are. Not only they're stupid and uneducated, they are children. They are infantiles. Those are 30, 40 years graduates of Oxford. They are imbeciles, like petulant children. And that's the only thing they can know how to do. The same goes for the political elite, which is exactly educated the same way, or rather dumbed down in humanities, of which Mr. Kosarev writes, or for that matter I write, or for that matter what Mr. H.R. Mencken was writing in 1920s when he talked about the morons with PhDs. And there you go. And if that hasn't been enough, now we have Russians already basically mocking the combined West and the United States. You probably already heard about it, that Russian warriors said, in their message to Mr. Biden, that we Russian warriors express our sincere gratitude for you for the Abrams tanks that the U.S. is supplying to Ukraine. The soldier can be heard saying that they asked Biden to send more Abrams tanks, as those that did arrive in Ukraine are very few, and the Russian forces have to spend a lot more time just hunting them down for them. And then, of course, they mockingly they offered that 10% kickback to Mr. Biden, the big guy, as they say, for sending more Abrams, because obviously Russian troops get rewarded, I believe, 10 million rubles, which is a really significant number, significant amount of money. and they want more Abrams. It doesn't matter how they, as Karine Jean-Pierre today stated, that those Abrams are not American tanks. So, you know, it's exactly, we have the scale of idiocy is unbelievable. And what I want to say is they say that, yeah, we can send 10% of the kickbacks to Big Joe, and he can use the Mir credit card in Russia. So it's, they are literally just, as you can see yourself, that's another one coming up in flames. And now, of course, there are all kinds of the morons, you know, who are butthurt and sour grapes, and they say, oh no, they're not real tanks, you know, the real Abrams, they lack all this, you know, depleted uranium, you know, some kind of screens and things of this nature. Sure, it doesn't matter, as I already stated. Instead of it, they will use not two RPGs, which are flown by the drones and dropped on the top of them. As you can see yourself here, it's what one of the tracks, as you can see yourself, has been blown up on this Abrams, and it was disabled. And after that, it's a very easy going, and the Russian loitering munitions are really, really good. They are really precise, and of course, and as we talk about new Scalper, which is, by the way, if you what a Scalper is Lancet, but Lancet is the Lancet in Russian, and the Scalper is the other iteration of the loitering munitions. They are extremely advanced, have great optics, and of course now we have the situation with those loitering munitions, which are capable to operate in swarms and provide own targeting. So this is a horrifying development. So it doesn't matter what amount of Abrams and in what configuration they send. They can set M1A2, whatever the hell name of this latest versions. They will be also burned. Doesn't matter. And again, I will repeat, you can quote me. Nothing goes away from Cornet. Simple as that, especially when they use the sequential salvo or launch of the two Cornet ATGM missiles. So there you go. And the other important thing, of course, is the fact that Russians we have now a frigate, Marshal Shaposhnikov, which arrived yesterday, I believe, at the port of Hamad, and to take part in the DIMDAX 2024 defense exhibition. Interfax news agency reported on Monday, citing the press service of the fleet, its Pacific Fleet, and there was a welcoming ceremony. For some reason, they used the old photo of Marshal Shaposhnikov, which is 14 years old. Now it is a completely different ship from what is shown there. You can see itself, this is the nose part of the ship of Marshal Shaposhnikov. It's entering the Qatar port and Hamad port, and here it is, here how it looks like nowadays. And if you take a look at it, you will see yourself that it's obviously a new ship. We already discussed it many times. It carries truckload of the missiles ranging from subsonic but long-range X-35 to, of course, it has the vertical launch system of 3S-14. And that brings us to this very interesting issue. We already know that zircon have been used in the combat. And guess what this ship carries, which is its standard issue munition. Obviously, it carries 3M22 zircons, hypersonic missiles with a range of 1,500 kilometers. That single ship can basically sink the whole carrier battle group, and nothing could be done about it. And this is just to demonstrate to you, for example, how suddenly tactical issue of visiting some port becomes the operational and strategic one. And do we know if it carries the zircon? Nobody wants to find out. So, but it is in Qatar, it is there, it is demonstrating that, demonstrating Russian flag, and it's very important in terms of the parading Russian, you know, how to put it, hardware, if you wish, because obviously they will allow visitors on board of this ship, apart from the professionals who will be obviously provided with the extended excursion, if you wish. And this whole ship is now as using the the combat aircraft terminology is a glass cockpit, so to speak. It is all computerized. It's a digital ship. It's very advanced, including the newest iterations of the sonar station, signal processing, and all kinds of things of this nature. So, and it will be very interesting, I'm sure, for many people, especially from Arab countries, to be on board and see what Russia can offer them in terms of the actually surface combatants, and especially in terms of the weapons which they will be able to carry. No, not necessarily zircon. Russia is not selling zircon to anybody, but even the presence of P-800 Onyx, those also terrifying anti-shipping missiles, will interest, and not only will, they, Arabs, many Arab countries are very interested in obtaining those systems. And Marshal Shapashnikov is doing this, the rounds. And to conclude today, obviously, with this whole situation is Mr. Kuad, General Kuad, who was the Inspector General of the Bundeswehr and then of NATO troops. And he also explains, after he laughed his socks off on one of the shows recently when they were telling him that Russians lose 10 times more than Ukrainians, he literally laughed until, just tearing up from laughter. He's talking about the situation that's it. Ukraine is done as a state, and you can look it up. Sadly, it's in German, but you can use the translation. And he was one of few people, not that I agree completely with his take, but he was one of the few people who actually warned about this whole situation as it unfolds now. And for that, I just can applaud him. And in conclusion, if anybody had any doubts about Washington, D.C. and the establishment, here it is. Nikki Haley, a main warmonger and genocidal maniac who loses every single primary. Guess what? She won DC primary. First victory for campaign. I think so. It's going to be also the last one, but it tells you that her insane agenda, her genocidal streaks, her neocon ugliness, guess what? It takes DC, Washington establishment, and Democrats also, to give her one, probably the only victory in the primaries. And that tells you everything you need to know about those people, which I write and which Mr. Kosarev wrote in his article on RIA News. This is the class which can do nothing. They're absolutely useless in their existence. And as the result, well, Nikki Haley is completely bought by military-industrial complex and by neocons. But hey, she stays in the race, whatever, so sure. Yeah, but that's what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And in the end, as always, I want to express my profound gratitude to my wonderful patrons who keep me in business of doing what I'm doing. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford it, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee or two. And that will be it for today, guys. And I'll talk to you later. And bye-bye.